Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's distribution demo. I'm going to be demoing a change that just went in a couple days ago to our Helm charts that add support for configuring Smartcard authentication. This is a feature that's been in GitLab for several releases and supported in Omnibus, but we weren't able to support it previously in the charts due to the Nginx ingress that we use in the charts not really being able to support it running running on a separate port, which is how it works or how it was working by default for the rest of normal GitLab installations. So recently a change went in that enabled it to work on a regular port 80, port 443, but under a different domain, and that enabled us to make use of that with the Helm chart. So I'm going to show that in use today, and this feature will be coming out in 13.4 at the end of the month. So if I jump over to my project, jump over to my instance I've set up, very default Kubernetes install using the Helm chart, and it's very bare bones. All I've basically done at this point is log in and upload an EE license, as the Smartcard authentication is an EE premium feature. So I've done that. I've uploaded my license. The next step I'm going to do is to create a new user that I'm going to use for my user for logging in. So I'm just going to create a user for myself and use a real email for this. So this is the user we're going to attempt to log in as using Smartcard authentication. So I don't have a smart card here. What I do have is a YubiKey that can be turned into smart card mode, but by default it's in its default one-time password mode. Or what you can do is have your browser provide certificates. So for ease of demo, I'm just going to have the browser provide certificates for this feature. So typically, if you have a smart card, your administrator, and we have some docs on this in our, if I go into the smart card authentication, we have some regular docs at GitLab around smart card authentication, but normally your administrators will have access to the kind of root cert key for your smart card devices. So that's what we need to provide GitLab with. And then as the end user, my device is able to provide a certificate to the browser that is has been created using that key. That CA cert has been signed with that, and that's how we will know that we will validate. That's how the system will validate against the certificate and let you log in. So in that case, I am going to, I've already done something similar without a smart card. I've just replicated a CA cert and then my own private cert. Too many terminals open. I'm just going to go to a new one. So I've already created a couple certificates. I have my CA certificate and signing requests, and then I have my private certificate, and it's also been exported into a P12 key, which is what the browser is going to be able to use. So I'm just going to follow the documentation that we have on this around creating a key. So we have in the charts, we have some new documentation and secrets around creating the certificate authority key. And it has one interesting point of the key name that we create needs to be ca.crt. So that's being controlled here. And that's a restriction placed on us by the Nginx ingress. The current support in the version of Nginx ingress we're using basically doesn't let you configure what file path it's looking in. So it only works for that file path. So I can call the secret whatever I want, but I need, so we want the PEM here, but I need to make sure that the key name is ca.cert. So now we've created that in our global, in our charts global document, we've now added a section on the settings around Smartcard authentication. And so basically I'm going to need to go in and enable Smartcard and provide it that secret key that I just created. And then the rest of these are the client certificate required host is the host name that we'll be using to authenticate against. We automatically populate it by default with, if you provide the Helm chart with, if you provided it with like a wildcard domain, we'll just prepend like Smartcard, the Smartcard subdomain to that wildcard domain. Otherwise, you can configure it manually here. And then there's a few other options that we won't be using for the browser certificate demo. So I'm just going to go into my charts folder, the GitLab chart, and I configured this cluster using this config file, basically. So this is my cluster right now, very bare bones config. So I'm going to add app config. And the CA secret I just created was that. There's my instance. So I'm just going to upgrade that instance, pass it this config file.
Hey DJ, while that's running, I was curious. You had mentioned that Omnibus has had this feature for a while, and it's able to use an alternate port. Um, this operates a little bit differently. I was curious, is that functionality to run on a different domain also going to be available in Omnibus, or are they going to be essentially disparate or different?
That's a good question. I'm not sure actually if we've enabled the alternate domain for Omnibus or if we've just, so the Rails code base supports either one, but in Omnibus, in order to support the domain, we would have had to provide an additional like server configuration for an additional server name address. I'm not aware that we've actually done that. It's possible maybe I just missed that config coming through. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, off the top of my head, I don't think we've provided that.
Gotcha. I was just curious.
And so I'm using K9S here just to monitor my my namespace in the cluster, so we can kind of get an idea of when the changes are rolled out. As we see it bringing up new web service and Sidekick pods. And GitLab pod. So one thing that should be interesting is because I deployed from master, I know we have an ongoing issue with two-factor auth in master. So hopefully that doesn't impact this demo, but I guess we'll see. We're just about rolled out enough to start taking a look here. Okay, that should hopefully be enough to have this enabled now on enough of the pods that we won't get any errors. So nothing should really change from my logged in root instance here. But if I open up a second browser and I navigate here, That actually did not work as expected. What happened here? So what I was expecting to see is the login page should have had an additional login option for Smartcard. Let us jump into one of these and see what's going on. Well, we are missing our secret. That's certainly one problem. I'm just going to check the config to see if the settings made it through. And they did not. Oh, I know what happened. Right before this demo, I was working on something else, and I'm now on the 4.3 stable branch. Okay. Like I said, this is only in master, and will be released in the 13.4 release. Unfortunately, that means we have to wait for it to roll out again. Luckily this time around, we probably only need to wait as long as this one until this one terminates, which is the last remaining old web service. And then we should be able to check it out again. Okay, so if I refresh the page now, there we go. So now we have a smart card option for logging in. So yeah, I had to be on master. I haven't added my cert to this browser yet, so if I try to log in, I just get a bad request. But you can see from here that we have, in this case, we have this smart card domain, but it's not on any custom port. So that's the ability we needed in order to make this work in the charts. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my preferences and add my certificate here into Firefox. So in my certificates, I can just go and import from that P12 key from the smart card test. And the email specified in this key matches my unique email as is in the GitLab instance. And now Firefox is aware of the certificate. So now if I hit this login with smart card, Firefox should ask me if I want to present that certificate to this website. That's what it's supposed to do. Apparently it was cached. Yeah, so this is what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to let you pick a certificate. You can see I have my email address listed here. Because this is a demo, I'm not going to bother to remember the decision. But if I just hit OK, it should then log me in as that user, which it did. And that is it. Sorry for the bit of the mix up there with running the wrong instance. It was initially running master, but then when I did that did our earlier upgrade, I actually upgraded it to an older version. But that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
In terms of the user experience, if you actually had a card, I've never had a card and used GitLab, and so I'm curious, like what obviously Firefox doesn't prompt you. I'm curious what that looks like, or if we know.
Yeah, so I believe for the first time you do it, like if you had a card, I think you have to add it as a device, like under security devices.
Gotcha. Okay. That's
Uh,
how it gets wired up.
and
Okay.
and so um, that's how a Firefox would know about it, and then it would do a very similar thing in that like it would ask where you want to get that auth from when you load the page. Um, like Firefox would ask you which device you want.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
how that device works, I think at that point is up to the device. And it, depending on the device, you might need an additional uh, like extension to Firefox. So if the device is just always there, I think it works by default. But I think there's other settings that need to happen if it's a device that like is kind of like a YubiKey where it needs some capacitance on it or something like that before it activates. Yeah, the important thing is that that device gives somehow through a plugin or otherwise, that device gives Firefox a certificate that identifies you that has that email set, and that
Gotcha.
certificate has been uh, has a root certificate authority that is the same that has been given to GitLab.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? If not, that's the demo for the week. Thanks everyone for coming out.
Thanks, DJ.